Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1986 TVR 280i. Up front is a 2.8 liter V6 and down below is a 4-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here TVR because it's a TVR. I've never driven one before, and so I think it's so cool and so unique, and I have a lot to share about this car. Before we get on with the rest of the video, I do have a website, zackpradel.com, if you'd like to check out my blog posts, submit your own vehicle for review, or buy merch like stickers and things like that. But let's get back to that 2.8 liter under the hood. It's a Ford engine. It's a Cologne V6, which was manufactured in Germany, but was used in like the Ford Ranger, very, very common Ford vehicles, and that's gonna be a theme throughout the rest of the video. It makes about 160 horsepower, which isn't anything too crazy. It's not gonna blow you away. However, it's still pretty fun to drive. Now, these cars were originally meant to have V8s, but here in the US, TVR didn't give us that. It makes a great noise, for sure, and it pops and crackles when you let off the gas. I absolutely love that. That's a good noise. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed manual. Now, I would have liked to have seen a 5-speed, especially in the later 80s, but that's totally okay. Last but not least, the TVR 280i is rear-wheel drive, and it actually has inbound brakes. What that means is that the brake discs aren't out at the wheels. They're actually in towards the differential, which is typical for race cars, but these weren't raced all that much. I mean, they were, but not a whole ton. And so before we get onto the interior, because there's a lot of that stuff in here as well, I want to talk about the parts availability. Because this is a TVR, around 1,000 of these were made. You might be thinking, oh God, it's gonna be real hard to find parts for it. It's actually not. The reason for that is because TVR was broke in the 80s, and we'll talk more about that at the end, but they used whatever parts they could find at their local stores. And it actually changes car to car. A clutch in this car might not fit your TVR 280i. They just used whatever was there. And so there's a lot of Ford parts, there's Rover parts, the taillights are from a Mercedes. The interior parts are from Land Rover. Parts are really, really easy to find. This V6 was put into Ford Rangers, one of the most common cars. You can get the front brake pads from a Ford Escort. So, to my surprise, it's actually not hard to find parts for these cars. But let's move on to the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of different gauges. On the far left, I have battery voltage. Then I have my oil pressure. I have my speedometer and tachometer, coolant temperature, and my fuel. On the steering wheel, it's wooden, and it has these sort of pistol grips. It is aftermarket, but it does have the TVR logo in the center. Off to the left, I do have the horn. Is that the Godfather theme? And then I do have flip-up headlights we'll talk about with the rest of the bodywork, but that switch is off to the left. I do get a vent, and on the door, I just have the handle to get in and out. It's a very cramped interior, at least for me, a big red-blooded American that, well, isn't the smallest, to be nice. Moving into the center, I have some warning lights and 2 climate control vents, as well as I have a quartz clock, which is very, very common for 80s cars to have quartz clocks. I actually did a mini documentary about it that you can see in the upper right-hand corner if you'd like to check that video out. Why so many 80s cars have quartz. But then in the center, I get a bunch of buttons. These are from the Land Rover Defender 90, which I reviewed a yellow one of those as well. But I have like my climate controls and fan speed and heat. And this is also where I find my window switches. They're really big and knobby, and they definitely look like they're out of a Defender. This is also where I find my radio. Of course, this isn't the factory radio, but with these TVRs, it's hard to even know what's factory and what's not. Moving into the center console, it's very, very large. And I do have the shifter, wooden shift knob, absolutely love that. And I get the handbrake, a little ashtray, and these are aftermarket cup holders. So we'll do a big friggin' bottle test here in the TVR, and unfortunately it fails. Now the seats are decently comfortable. Like I said, the cabin itself is not very comfortable because I am quite large, but it's actually easier to fit here in the V6 than it would have been with the V8, because the V8 took up a little bit more room. So if you're tall, get the V6. Now, we don't have any back seats, but we do have a trunk, so let's go talk about that around back. So something kind of unique about the TVR is that in order to pop the trunk, there's actually this button right here. However, it is battery operated, so if the car is off, it won't pop. But once it does pop, this is the Targa top. So this convertible top folds down like this. You can actually just fold it right back up like that. And then you put this Targa in place. This is a one-way Targa. It looks the same on either side, but it only goes actually one way. Once you move this out of the way, we have a spare tire, of course, your spare British car essentials. But when you have the top out of here, the trunk is actually decently spacious, which is pretty nice to see. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I love it. Now this particular car is wrapped. The original color is that dark looking color. However, it's so nearly impossible to find the correct color because, as the owner told me, TVR would mix just the craziest things. There's technically a paint code, but they mixed like oil-based paint with water-based paint, which scientifically shouldn't work, but I guess it did somehow. I'm not quite sure how. So because these were all hand built, they were just built by dudes, or to use the British term, just random blokes in a shed. And so there's something called TVR graffiti. And apparently under the front nose cone of this car, there's a man with hilariously large ears drawn. Apparently, whoever put this car together was making fun of one of his co-workers. Imagine having big ears in the 1980s and you're still getting made fun of it by a YouTuber 30 years later. Poor guy. You'll also notice that this is shaped like a wedge. Ford has the Panther platform. Mazda has like the NANB platform. This is actually called the Wedges platform. I'm not kidding, that's the actual name. And so this was actually designed by the same guy who did Lotus. He worked on DeLoreans, so you can kind of see that influence there. But the Wedge didn't really take on. So these didn't really sell all that well. And what didn't help is that in the early 1980s, there was a recession in Britain where these were made. TVR ran out of money, so they were purchased by Peter Wheeler. This is known as part of the Peter Wheeler generation. And that's why you see so many parts bin parts, is because TVR didn't have any money. But the owner of TVR himself was quoted as saying that the 280 was a disappointment. They didn't sell too many of them. They only made around 1,000. So the year after this particular one was built, TVR stopped importing into the US. In 1987, they said no more. And since then, we haven't seen another TVR on American shores. Well, at least built for the American market. So this is an incredibly niche little sports car. How many of them are left on the streets? I don't know, but not many. And so a couple of things come along with that. First of all, it builds an incredibly unique and interconnected community. If you have a TVR, you probably know who else has the TVRs, which it's nice to see for a vehicle like this. But the other thing is that what you're really buying is a pre-built kit car. Like I keep mentioning, parts availability is still strong because it shared parts with everything. Don't look at that engine as a TVR's engine. Look at it as a Ford Ranger's engine, and things will start to make sense. Even that crazy inner brake rear end is actually out of a Jaguar, so it's not that hard to find parts for. Something else is that it's also an all fiberglass body. Now it's a steel chassis underneath, and that's important to know because they didn't treat it with anything. They didn't paint it or nothing. So a lot of these rusted out in any northern states. This luckily is a California car, so I don't have too much to worry about. So as my time here with the TVR comes to a close, I'm honestly really astonished. I knew it was gonna be fun to drive. This is pretty fun to drive. I don't quite sit comfortably in here, but when I get on a twisty road, I immediately forget about that. What I'm most shocked at is the parts availability and how easy they are to work on. Like I said, that V6 has mechanical fuel injection. There's no computer on board. And that is so cool. This is a cool car. It's a cool piece of automotive history, and I'm so thankful for having the opportunity to get behind the wheel. Once in a lifetime for sure. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I can't thank Tim enough. You have to check out Tim's YouTube channel and his Instagram, which is linked in the description below, TVR.US. If you're into TVRs or just obscure vehicles in general, you have to go give him a follow. It's a necessity. He's so cool. Please go check his stuff out. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.